And welcome to this week's OTR. Bo and Walker with you as usual here on this Wednesday at lunch. Walker, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Oh, it's another great day and reclassification officially done, and now we can really turn our attention to high school football playoffs now that the big distraction is now gone.
Yeah, there was a big distraction, and we've gone since September. All this started, and now here we are. The end is here. It's over. Earlier this week, the Georgia High School Association they did hear appeals. I think from what was it, like 18 schools that wanted to move
18, 19,
regions.
something like that, yeah.
We had some regions affected here in our coverage area. Gainesville, they appealed to move back into what they originally were in for decades, Region 8, and they won their appeal, which we were all kind of shocked that they won the appeal. I think Gainesville was a little bit shocked as well that they won that appeal to go back in to play with Hab Central and Appalachia and several others that they played for years. So that's an interesting region in Region 8. Also in Region 8 3A, Morgan County won their appeal to go over
Hmm.
to that region. Union County won their appeal to go over to from Region 8 3A to 7 3A. I don't know if anything really surprised me other than the GHSA approved Gainesville to move into Region 8.
So you're saying you weren't surprised by Morgan County? Because I kind of was.
Morgan was one of those that kind of was out there all alone, right? They had a small island around them. I think they were initially put in the Savannah region
They were put in the
and
Augusta region.
Augusta region. So, I mean, let me flip over to that one actually.
Yeah, I'm on it right now.
Let's flip to it and see. Get back to us talking here. I'll try to fix
There we
that,
go.
but go ahead and discuss that one.
Yeah, so on that map that we just had on the screen while Bo works on that audio, that maroon region of Augusta with, let's see, there's 7 schools in it that also included Morgan County as of Sunday night, which, it's a long drive from Madison to Augusta, but it's all I-20. You jump on I-20 and drive about an hour and a half. I know that drive very, very well heading to the in-laws' place. So, um, Morgan right here. Um, Not a terrible drive. Where it becomes interesting is that they appealed to move up into 8-3A, and now they have to make, which isn't a bad trip to Elberton or Hartwell or Stevens. They've got to go to Dahlonega, which
Hmm.
that's not an easy drive from Madison. Friday night, yeah, it's not bad. If you're able to schedule the basketball home and homes on Fridays, yeah, not bad. But you're not going to play every soccer game on a Friday. You're not going to play every tennis match on a Friday. So it was kind of interesting that they're going to take this 2, maybe even 2.5 hour drive to Dahlonega, as opposed to at most an hour and a half
Yeah.
over to Augusta.
Yeah, and that one is interesting on that one because now you've got these schools going. Region tournaments are going to be interesting, and I want to say this because I think it has been lost in the way of high school football. We all think high school football first anyway. That's kind of how our brains go because we're in it, preparing for it for so long, but we also forget the fact that these teams play basketball,
Yeah.
these teams wrestle, cross country. Then you get to the spring season. You've got baseball. You've got all the Olympic sports. You've got baseball playing double headers. When are they going to play double headers? Obviously, probably on a Friday night. Now you'll have a double header down in Madison because if you have that road trip, you don't want to make it so you have to go twice in 1 week that far. So I think a lot of that is lost in these region alignments because we all think football first, But then again, when you have a Tuesday basketball game and you have to travel, to Elbert from Lumpkin County or to Morgan from Lumpkin County, or even, you look at some of the other ones, even Hart County to Morgan County. I mean, it's a long drive. So I think everybody wants to say, okay, we're doing this for travel. Well, are we? What are we doing this for? I mean,
You're
because
doing
really
it for
that is
travel and football, absolutely.
yes, absolutely. Because you only have to worry about 10 games in high school football, whereas when you have basketball, you have baseball, you have softball, you have all those other sports. And now the travel has gotten a little bit worse, or a lot worse for some of these regions.
Yeah, I mean, Union County right back in the region they were in, but Lumpkin electing to go with that Stevens, Hart, Franklin, Toccoa clump, which we kind of expected. We didn't necessarily expect Hebron Christian to go in there. We knew that was a possibility, but it was one of those where we thought maybe they would get thrown in with Wesley and Westminster. Holy Innocents didn't end up being that way. But the Morgan County move, it makes sense for them, but it also doesn't make
Yeah.
sense for them. I don't know how long of a trip it is from Madison to Milledgeville. You make that drive a little bit more than I do, but um, you know, Washington County is just a little bit east of Milledgeville, and that was
Yep.
the only non-Augusta school in that region. Um, so I can't imagine the road trips were bad in that region. Morgan County, going to football, they're in the state second round this year in Double A, and they're a really good football
Yeah.
team. So that region in football, 8-3A, just became a lot more competitive with Morgan County, Hebron Christian, throw Lumpkin and their success in there. Stevens County, very successful. Elbert County, very successful.
Mm-hmm.
That's a fun football region for sure, and a very competitive football region.
Yeah, it is a very competitive football region when you look at that. And you mentioned 7-3A just a moment ago. Like Union, they're used to that, so I don't really see a big issue with 7-3. I know we're kind of jumping here, but um, they're used to that travel, and that was a decision they had to make. The question is, though, when you look at Union, we kind of thought for a little bit, Walker, that Lumpkin was going to make that jump as well, and then
Mm-hmm.
I think at the last hour or so they decided no, we're not going to. We're going to stick in Region 8-3A. So with that said, what do you think the feeling is of Lumpkin, and let's go with Hart, even Franklin and Elbert, about Morgan jumping into the region?
Yeah, I mean, I think I want to go to those other three first outside of Lumpkin. They're okay with that. It's a nice little jaunt down 441 to Athens for all of them, or 85 down to 129 to get to Athens. So that's all interstate for all those four schools. For that
Mm-hmm.
clump up there
Mm-hmm.
in the Hartwell area, even for Elbert, that's just coming over to Athens and then driving down 441. For Lumpkin County, the easiest way is to go 60 to 129 to get to
Yeah.
Athens and go around the loop and hit 441.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a hard trip, but it's not an easy trip.
Right.
So that's the kicker. Hebron's not going to mind going to Madison. That's not a bad trip for them either. When you get into basketball season and Barrow Arts and Sciences or whatever that school is,
Mm-hmm.
Barrow Arts and Sciences Academy,
Yeah.
that's not a bad trip for them from Winder. So Lumpkin's kind of the one kind of left out in the open, but it was either that for the Indians or you're making the trip all the way up to what's this school right here,
Yeah.
Ringgold and Lafayette and Kahala Creek, which I don't think Indians fans or Indian staff, players, coaches want to make that trip either. So,
No, yeah.
worst of or the better of two evils is definitely Madison or Morgan County down in Madison, but that's still a long drive.
Yeah, it is. It's still a long drive, and when you have the long drive, there's nothing you can do for the next 2 years. You just have to take it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's exactly what it'll be, and they'll do that for the next couple seasons. Now, I don't know if you want to. Let's switch up a little bit and let's go up to 6A, because 8-6A is a region that changed, and along with 7-6A. because 7-6A lost 2 teams out of that region. Now, 7-6A is Alpharetta, Johns Creek, Lanier, Milton, Riverwood, Roswell. Now, Mountain View and Gainesville were in that region. They appealed. Lanier also appealed, but they lost their appeal. So they stay in Region 7-6A, but Gainesville, Mountain View move over to 8-6A with Appalachia, Cedar Shoals, Clark Central, Hab Central, Jackson County, Loganville, Mountain View, and Walnut Grove. Now, note Cedar Shoals and Walnut Grove elected to move up from 5A to 6A, so the natural placement for them, Walker, was in 8-6A.
Yeah, and we kind of thought Lanier maybe would get the nod over Mountain View, the two schools being right here on your screen. Lanier in this goldish color, and of course Mountain View in the maroon in this region format. But when you look at it, 365, 985, kind of the dividing line. Sans Canesville, who has traditionally been in this region, Lanier stays and goes west, while Mountain View gets to go east. I like this placement for Gainesville. You get to see the natural rivalries. Of course, we love, Gainesville, Milton, Gainesville, Roswell on the regular season slate for, radio coverage and media coverage, but it's not the traditional rivalry of a Habersham Central, of a Clark Central, of, an Appalachia, or even not a Walnut Grove necessarily, but a Loganville. Teams that Gainesville has played traditionally for years on end. And like you mentioned, earlier in the show, Gainesville had been in that region for decades, and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden they get thrown into the Milton Roswell region. Glad to see Big Red get back into a region where there's some natural rivalries and some local interest in the teams that they're going to be playing against for the next 2 years.
Yeah, and to have Clark Central back in that region, that makes for an interesting matchup because we know how Clark Central is. Some years they're great, some years they're not so great. But
Mm-hmm.
kind of an interesting now game thrown back on the schedule for Gainesville.
Yeah, I mean the Gladiators had a down year this year, but think of did an 8-5A two last year with Jackson County and Habersham Central. They absolutely boat raced everyone, and this year they were down, but they're in the round of 32. Like they figured it out and pulled off a massive upset last week in the first round of the playoffs. So we know this Clark Central team is on the right track to be a really competitive team at 8-6A next year. Put them up against a Kareem Hewley and a Nigel Newkirk in Gainesville, and that game's got fireworks written all over it.
What's kind of interesting, Walker, if you go back to 2015 and you see Region 8 with Flowery Branch was in this region then, Loganville, Cedar Shoals, Clark Central, Lanier, Salem, Heritage, Appalachia, Wider, Barrow. So that was a massive region back then, and that was 2015, the last time that they were housed in the same region with Cedar Shoals and Clark Central. And if I remember correctly, Cedar Shoals had a really good basketball program back in the day.
Yeah.
But kind of the same look from 2015 Gainesville now goes back into. So, yeah, if you want to talk about natural fits, yes, it's definitely a natural fit. Now, some folks on the Twitter that have been tweeting some things about it, which it's kind of interesting. There is kind of a little battle going back and forth between a couple on Twitter. You can go check it out on Twitter. But when you look at this, and I think a lot again, everybody's goes to football, and we're just as guilty as anybody. And I'm not calling anybody out because everybody goes to football and everybody looks at it and says, okay, we can't compete with Gainesville, or we can't compete with so-and-so, or we can't compete with – but, again, the postseason ranking is now being used from Class A to 7A. So you – or 2A to 7A. I don't – is Class A's using it? They are.
Yeah, Class A is using it as well. Yeah.
Class A is using it as well. So now here we have it. All of the regions are said and done. And there was discussion for a little bit about using the Maxwell ratings, but that discussion kind of was definitely tabled, and I thought it was tabled for a couple good reasons. One biggest reason to me was most of these coaches had already started trying to fill their schedule based on what would help them best with the current postseason ranking system. So to kind of go in there and say, hey, we're going to use the Maxwell ratings, which, by the way, does not account for any out-of-state games whatsoever.
Or non-GHSA games.
Or non-GHSA games. which is basically put in there as you didn't play. So that would have been a negative to add that in there. Now, I'm not against tweaking it, maybe adding an aspect of the Maxwell ratings into maybe the PSR or some other type of rating if there are any out there. But here we are now, PSR fully in effect for next year, for the next 2 years in all classifications, and now it's time for teams to start solidifying the schedule that they feel best is going to help them strengthen their PSR way above whatever they're looking for. So this is going to be interesting because what are we going to find? Are we going to find some really good matchups? Are we going to find our non-region matchups? Or are we going to find some teams saying, okay, we need to take our region schedule is so difficult, we've got to take a cupcake week, for the lack of a better term, and get a win? Or is all these teams going to be like, we have to play good teams now?
Well, and that goes perfectly, with Gainesville, right? They've got, excuse me, they've got 8 region games in football that they're going to have to play. So that leaves 2 weeks where who are they going to get?
Yeah.
And knowing Josh Niblett, he's going to go get 2
Mm-hmm.
studs and put the whether it doesn't even matter if they're going to
Yep.
be, excuse me, state of Georgia or not. You've seen him be willing
Mm-hmm.
to go to Alabama and play Moody. You've seen him be willing to go and play Carrollton. So they're not going to shy away from going after some of the big dogs, potentially even maybe up into 7A, because Gainesville is going to make sure that they are set up to be as prepared as ever for those region games to try and push for a region title, but also, even if they don't win a region title, to position themselves where they are close enough to the top 8 to where they could get home field advantage for at least the first 2 weeks.
Look, I'm going to go ahead and say I got one for you, Gainesville. I've got one for you. Look, there's the camera right there. I've got one for you. It's Housing 8-7A. Go play them. Buford, Gainesville. Let's get that on the schedule.
Oh,
Come on. Come on. I mean, it's, yes, do it. Why not do it?
well, and Buford only has to fill 6 region games, so they've got 4 slots at the beginning of the year to fill. Can you imagine a Buford Gainesville season opener?
Could you imagine at City Park or Philip Beard? I mean, that would be
Absolutely.
an
When's
epic
the last
environment.
time those teams played? It's a
Oh,
great question.
let's go back to the. Hold on.
I'm pulling up Historic Association. Let's
Yeah,
see.
let's see what. Let's try to find
Let's see. By opposing
records.
program,
There it is.
and I am at Gainesville, so let's go Buford.
They're 1 and
They've not
5
played
all
since
time.
2013,
They've beat them one time, 1915 and 2012.
and that was
And
at Tom Ryden,
what year was that?
2012. So 2013, the last time these two teams played. Can you imagine
See,
renewing a
but
rivalry?
but you know what year 2012 was for Gainesville though, right?
That was Deshaun's senior year,
That was a
correct?
state championship run. Coach Bruce Miller, the head coach at Gainesville at
That's
that
right.
time.
That's
So
right.
they won the state championship in Class 5A. So I feel like what Coach Nilbert has been doing with Gainesville's program, he's been building this program to a point where it's now time to be like, let's get that national look, that national game, and it definitely would be a national game in your backyard.
Absolutely.
And that's the huge thing about it because we all talk about Gates. And by the way, we probably should have a show at some point about Gates because I've
Okay.
been talking to coaches and and a lot of people, a lot of the coaches, and I'm tired of hearing about gate money and all this kind of stuff. So maybe a high school sports athletic department revenue show to tell us how the gate works for schools. So maybe we get that together at some point. Anyway, but what I'm looking at here is not only a gate, but I'm looking at just a massive matchup that is going to do nothing but help your PSR out.
Help both teams' PSRs
Yes.
out,
So
because
it's
Gainesville is going to be a high opponent's winning percentage, and you would imagine, with Jackson County, a Habersham Central, a Clark Central on Gainesville's schedule, looking at it from Buford's
mm-hmm.
perspective, opponent's winning percentage is
Yes.
going to be a pretty good number as well. And then, of course, Buford is going to play a bunch of really good teams, and who do they get in non-region games? They end up playing in 7A, a Decula, a Mill Creek, a Seconder, who are going to be pretty good in terms of opponents winning percentages as well. And of course, we anticipate Buford at most, having one, or I'd be shocked if it was two losses
Yeah.
in a regular season, just given what Buford does to teams across the state of Georgia and even across the nation. So
Well, you got to
it's a
think.
win-win. At least looking at it from our perspective, it's a win-win,
Yeah,
right?
definitely, definitely. It's definitely
Just a
a
question of if
win-win
they pull the trigger.
because you have to feel like right now on Wednesday, November 19th, and the football season's not even over with for the 2025 season. Early region favorite in 7A is Buford. I mean, granted,
Yes.
it's got to be early. Gainesville, early region favorite. What does Jackson County have in their back pocket? Jackson's defending champion in that region. So that'll be an interesting game there. What will Clark Central have? So, I mean, if you're looking at some of the early looks, you go down to 8-5A, and you've got East Forsyth, Branch, Jefferson, Johnson, Madison, North Oconee, Winder Barrow, which, by the way, if you go to the ghsa.net, you can pull up the regions that we're scrolling right now on the screen, and you can see these regions, throughout every classification. Also on these sheets or this screen here from the GHSA, they do put NR on these schools, which means non-region. Johnson is not elected to play non-region in football at this
Yeah, that's
moment.
interesting.
So they're at this moment that we know of, they're playing a region schedule in Region 8-5A. So you got to look at that one. In North Oconee and Jefferson, we've seen North Oconee dominate Jefferson in the last 2 years, 35-0 wins in the last two seasons. So you got to give North Oconee the early nod for region favorite. We're just talking football here. 8-4A, when you look at Bluff, East Hall, East Jackson, Monroe area, Oconee, and West Hall. That one right there to me is kind of a toss-up because you look at Oconee County, Monroe area, and Cherokee Bluff in that region. East Hall losing a boatload of talent. So West Hall, not sure about them. And then Region 6-4A, that one's a toss-up. It's got to be a toss-up.
I mean, how many seniors is Sean Pender
Yeah.
graduating this year?
Yeah.
I mean, and White County was improved this year. Dawson County improved this year. Pickens and Gilmer always going to be a thorn in people's sides. So, yeah, I mean, I think that region is very much so up for grabs in football.
Have I said anything that you disagree with at this moment? Please disagree with me.
No, I think that if you look at 8-5A, yeah, North Oconee, Jefferson, the two favorites. What does Flowery Branch have next year? A much improved team, but Brett Sturm, I believe, a senior.
Yes.
So who do they bring in at quarterback? Who's the next guy up there? East Forsyth always going to make a push. They're a tough team to out. So that will be interesting as well. What I'm really interested in watching though over the next 2 years, and you mentioned it, is these two regions in 4A: Chestatee, Dawson, Gilmer, North Hall, Pickens, White, and then the Cherokee Bluff region, where Monroe area and Oconee sit. You just don't know because there's going to be so much turnover with all of these schools. Even Cherokee Bluff going to have turnover. Malcolm Millsap graduating. That has been the go-to guy for a number of years for Tommy Jones. So a lot of turnover in both of these regions. I'm going to be interested to see when we do Kickoff magazine this year how the media members vote on these two regions, because I think it's going to be as even at the top as it ever has been. I don't know that there's going to be many percentage points difference when you take a look at the top of those two regions next year in the preseason poll.
I would 100% agree with you, and it will be interesting to see because Dylan Haley's back next year for Cherokee Bluff, and he'll be one of the top receivers in the area. Is C.J. Payne going to be the quarterback for Cherokee Bluff? Is that going to be the guy for them because they're going to have another year where you're breaking in a new quarterback? So but we always know Coach Jones's team play physical, and he'll be ready there to go. What does Oconee County, because they'll have Hall back at tight end, the big guy who's been dominating here as of late. So that'll be interesting with Oconee. And then in 6-4A, as you said, that one is definitely a toss-up. North Hall's losing a ton of seniors, How are they going to be next season with a lot of new on both sides of the football? So,
Hmm.
yeah, we'll be watching those two closely.
How excited do you think the 6 teams in 6-4A were to see GAC didn't appeal out of 5-4A?
Yeah, and you and I talked about that from the standpoint of, does it really matter for them? Does it really
Yeah.
matter, where you play? And like, if you move out of 5-4A, okay, fine. You're just running from Clarkston, Douglas, and not really running, but you're trying to get an easier trip. And I will give GAC that, because if you look at travel, although that region is closer for them, the travel north is a lot easier traffic-wise when you look at the travel. So you either go into the perimeter or you go out of the perimeter with an easier trip up 985. But they did decide to stay in. And again, what does it really matter when basically, well, not basically, when playoff time comes, you're kicked out. You're going to play private schools. So,
Yeah.
and that is in 2 through 4A, by the way. So, yeah, I think 6-4A was very happy that they didn't move in there, and now they have a nice little 6-team region that they can battle in and have a good time, because that's a good region right there to watch unfold. Now, I know we talked about 7-3A and 8-3A as far as football goes. You got to think, in 8-3A, you got a lot of old football powers in that region now.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Albert, Hart,
yeah,
Stevens, Hebron, defending private school state champs.
yeah.
Morgan County, always been tough. But what Heath Webb's doing at Lumpkin County, we've realized that, um, we knew Cal Faulkner was a huge feather in the cap for the Indians, but even
Mm-hmm.
without Cal Faulkner, they found ways to win games and make
Mm-hmm.
it back to the playoffs for a fourth straight year. And they're going to have returners. Yes, Nolan Matthews not going to be in the backfield next year, but a lot of other returning pieces for the Indians that you have to think that Lumpkin County is going to be in the mix.
Yeah.
Definitely for a playoff spot in 3A. But I think they have the pieces, and if they can find somebody that can tote the rock a little bit to take some pressure off of the quarterback in the passing game, uh, there's no reason Lumpkin County can't compete in that region.
Well, they've played Hart County the last couple of years, so that they have played with some of those. Well, at least one of them. They played Franklin County in the past. It's not like these teams are
Hmm.
strangers to them. They played Stevens in the past. So yeah, I agree what Heath is
It's been a
doing up.
long
Been
time
a
since
long time.
Morgan County.
But I agree with you what Heath's doing at Lumpkin County. He's built a very good program, and it's only going to continue to go up for him with the way and the stuff that he's put into it and the time and energy. So, yeah, that one's going to be interesting to watch as far as football goes. Of course, 7-3A, we saw what happened last couple of years in that one with Union County. They competed a couple of years ago and they even made the playoffs this year out of it. So, I don't know how good Union's going to be next year. That's the thing. We're trying to look far ahead on
Well,
that, but
Camden Kendrick should be back at quarterback, should be healthy. He started 2 years ago as a freshman, so he's just a junior um, going into the next reclass cycle. So they've got him for 2 years there. The question is, Ringgold, Rockmart, Murray County. Those are the three, and I mean you could throw
mhm.
Sonoraville in there as well.
Yeah,
Those are bugaboos. I
yeah.
mean those are really good football programs. So, but the continuation of Camden Kendrick at quarterback, I think, is going to be big for Union County, especially now that Coach Stowe has only had a year under his belt up there. You give him another year and two, I think the Union County could be a team that we're looking at competing at the top of Region 7 3A.
So 8-2A, we've not talked much about. 8-2A is the old 8A Division One, basically. Athens, Academy, Banks, Commerce, Oglethorpe, Prince Avenue has moved in, Providence, and Rabun County. That one, a very interesting look at. And we could go to, it's the Commons in this region:
Mm-hmm.
Athens Academy, Prince Avenue, Rabun. What will Commerce be like? In year two, in the spread offense, how is that going to go for them? And Oglethorpe County had some shocking
Yeah.
wins this year. So, what will 8-2A look like next year? We kind of have an idea what it might look like, but Rabun County seems to be on the way up in 8-2A.
Yeah, I mean, Athens Academy, Prince Avenue, going to be fun matchups for us to watch from Rabun County. You don't want to go play in Lexington. We learned that this year
Yeah, we did.
with Rabun County and East Hall both going down there, both losing games that arguably shouldn't lose. So whoever has to go down to Lexington, good luck. We'll anxiously await to see what the region
Yeah.
schedule comes out to be when it comes to that, and it's going to end up being across all the sports. That's just a
Hmm.
it's a weird little trip to get to Oglethorpe County because it's that little side road off of what is that, Highway 10 or Highway
Yeah.
78?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
one of those
Yeah.
numbers that goes
Uh-huh.
southeast of Athens that the road gets to like 25 miles an
Hmm.
hour in random
Hmm.
places. So it's a weird road trip and a weird place to go play. And Oglethorpe and the Patriots, they've found a way to really make that a tough place for opponents to go play at.
83 schools in Class 2A. And now there are
Yeah,
several schools that are not playing. There are several private schools as well. I think, what is it, 42 publics in 2A? Is that what we counted?
I think that's right. I think
Yeah.
no, they don't have that at the bottom of this sheet. But I mean, you see all of the double asterisk marks on your screen. Those are the non-football playing schools. You see the sub regions. I imagine those are subbed out mainly for other sports outside of football. You take a look at like 5 AA for instance. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 non-football playing
Yeah.
schools. So you have to imagine that those are going to you'll consolidate Whitfield Academy, Washington, Trinity Christian Utopian Academy, Landmark, and Elka into one region for football, but then split it up for all the other sports, and that's pretty consistent across the other two regions that are subdivided out. Maybe a little bit less so for AA. I could see maybe for AA um, staying subdivided. You've got 4 schools down here in subregion B. You've got all 5 that play in subregion A. It's a pretty long little haul from Putnam to Augusta. Um, so that'll be interesting to watch. But inside our region, Prince Avenue or Rabun, I think, have got to be your 2 favorites in 8 AA.
Absolutely. I would agree with that. If you noticed, 2A has 9 regions, and one of 9 2A is mainly, well, it's all private schools in that region.
Yeah.
So, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 that play football in that region of 13 teams. Now, down in Single A, Towns County, which by the way has already said they're playing a non-region football schedule according to this website, according to GHSA. So they'll enjoy shorter road trips by doing that in football. But now in the other sports, they did not elect to play over the last couple seasons. Now, and I'm sure they will play a region schedule because their basketball programs are usually pretty good. They put
Hmm.
baseball programs usually pretty good as well. So that one though, Town's used to it. Town's used to long road trips if they play a region schedule, and that's exactly what they have.
Yeah. I mean, outside of Woody Gap, everybody else is at least a two and a half
Woody
hour
Gap,
drive
all 42
away.
kids.
At least a 42-hour drive away for Towns County. So, from a football perspective, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. They could play some of the teams on the other side of the South Carolina border, North Carolina border. Um, of course, they can grab some non-region
Yeah.
games from some teams here in the state as well. But like you said, from a basketball perspective, I think they were playing for a state title, what, 2 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
Um, in boys basketball,
Yeah.
girls basketball is always really good as well. Their baseball program really good, and one of the uh, little caveats is to be able to compete for a state title, you have to play a region schedule.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think Towns County is going to take those programs that have traditionally had a lot of success and have been in the state title mix as of late away from region schedules. Just from a football perspective, those are really, really long road trips where you're taking, you know, 60, 70 kids out of
Yeah.
class basically at the start of a school day to drive down to a Washington Wilkes to play a 7:30 football game and then get home at like, 1 or 2 in the morning. That's not a healthy lifestyle to live.
No, not at all. And by the way, I've see Coach Rob Stowe on Twitter has released a
Ooh.
schedule for 2026. Fannin, White, and Stevens are non-region opponents. So Union going close to play. Yeah, obviously that Fannin County game very close for them. White County not too bad. So that's an interesting schedule they've put up on X this afternoon. And so there. I mean, schedules are coaches are quickly moving to book their schedules out in football. And so there's one that well that's is that a way too early football schedule?
No, I
I
think it's
don't
a
know.
perfectly timed
I
football
think it
schedule.
is.
You want to see that come out as soon as possible. I mean, Fannin County going to be under new head coaching regime
Yep.
after their coach announced his retirement after 30 years. That will be interesting. That'll be a home game for Union. Then they go on the road to White County and Stevens before a bye week before they start region play. Um, their second bye week right in the middle of region play. So that's really well timed bye weeks by Coach uh, Stowe at Union County. The scrimmage at Gainesville, kind of an interesting one
Yeah.
going outside the state for their scrimmage. Not a long
It's a
road trip
close
by
one.
for Hayesville or Union, but kind of interesting that they're going to go outside the state and not give a whole lot of answers to anybody around Region 7 to
Mm-hmm.
be able to maybe scout a little bit on that scrimmage. So, kind of a really, really fun schedule there for Union for sure. As you look at their non-region opponents and what that's going to do for their PSR playing uh, Fannin County, who is a did they end up in 3A?
Who? Fannin?
They ended,
They're
yeah,
they're in they're in 7-2A, I believe.
that's right, 7-2.
Yeah.
So a really good team of 2A, a White County team in 4A, and then uh, a really good Stevens County team from the next region over. So getting some pieces from other classifications, I imagine you're going to see a lot of that when we take a look at all the schedules as they start to come in. You're going to see them go get a really good team from maybe a lower classification,
Mm-hmm.
a team from a higher classification that you feel like you can compete with, and then a team from the next door neighbors, so to speak, in the same classification. I think that's a pretty good formula that they put together up in Blairsville.
Yeah, speaking of, we were talking earlier about the two regions in 4A that have a lot of our teams in it, and you wonder if those two regions were running after each other. In some aspect. North Hall Bluff, that's got to be on the schedule. You would think. You would probably think that Bluff and Flowery Branch are going to be on the schedule, or so I hear. Allegedly,
Mm-hmm.
that's going to happen next year. You got to think Chestatee is who are they going to look to go after if anybody over in 4A? Dawson. They played Flowery Branch in the past. They played Bluff in the past. They've been the same region with Bluff in the past. So would that be a potential game scheduled there? East
North
Hall,
Hall, East Hall, that's
yeah,
absolutely on the
that'll
schedule.
be on the schedule. Oh, who does West Hall go after over in 6-4A? Are they going to play Chestatee? Are they going to try to play Dawson, Pickens, White? Because there's a lot there that you can play across with. So I don't know. I hear that Dawson might keep East Forsyth on the schedule. I'm not sure on that one. That's just some of the rumblings, but
Sure, Lumpkin's going to stay on the
mm-hmm.
schedule,
Yeah, Lumpkin
um,
Dawson will stay
especially
there.
for Dawson and White.
Yeah.
Question is, does Lumpkin go play at East Jackson or um, try and go after a Cherokee Bluff again? Lumpkin going to only have what? Let's see, they've got six region opponents in football, so they've got four
For
games to fill. Um,
you,
do they go
do they go
over to
after North
Union
Hall?
County?
Do they go after North Hall? Do they?
Yeah, North Hall's
Yeah.
an interesting one. Um, do they go after a Union County, even if they go down to a 2A? Do they chase after potentially a Rabun County
Mm-hmm.
or a Banks County Commerce? Just going to be really interesting to see what Heath Webb has up his sleeve and who he's talking to, because Lumpkin County's got all those traditional rivalries that are up in 4A now, and you
Yep.
can't schedule them all because they've got to schedule their non-region opponents as
Mm-hmm.
well. So you have to imagine Dawson and White County are on there, but who are the other two? That's going to be something that is going to be interesting, at least for me to watch.
Well, they'll start releasing those as soon as possible. Most likely, we'll see the schedules roll out on X and Instagram, and maybe we'll get some of those emailed to us there, coaches. Maybe. Anyway, yeah. So now it's time to schedule. Now it's time to get ready. But now it's time, Walker, to get ready for second round of the playoffs this week.
Yeah, it's going to be an exciting week. I mean, you take a look at, just the games we have on our airwaves, Gainesville and Brunswick, sure to be an absolute shootout.
Yes.
Both those teams can score points at will, and both defenses have had their issues. I think Coach would be the first to admit, against some of these higher powered offenses, that they have seen a couple of hiccups in the secondary and not being able to get to the quarterback. Brunswick's going to take advantage of that, but I don't know that Brunswick can slow down Hewley and Newkirk either. So that's going to be an interesting matchup. On Jackson County, Milton, popcorn, please. What a matchup! The defending champs in Milton, who are down, admitted, but they're still Milton. Jackson County, who's playing really good football. Their only loss is a 10-point loss to Jefferson.
Yeah.
That, according to Jeff Hart, should have won the game.
Mm-hmm.
And then on FM 102.9, rematch of last year's quarterfinal, North Hall and LaGrange, which that's a toss-up according to the Maxwell ratings.
Yeah, that one's
as well as North Hall has played, the fact that that's a toss-up, ooh, good luck.
I don't want to take anything away from the Pick'em show tomorrow, so we're not going to obviously make any picks, even though, Walker, you're going to be off this. So we're trading me for you on the show this week.
Yep.
So I'm back. You're not. You're out. But regardless, we've
Tag
got
team.
Walker's picks
That's
and
it.
everything. but I want to say, in that Brunswick-Gainesville game, the amount of rushing yards that Brunswick brings into the game is crazy.
Don't steal Jeff Hart's stat of the show.
I'm not going to steal the stat of the show. I'm just setting it up for him. And
yeah, absolutely.
The
Put
amount,
it on a tee.
The amount that's why you want to watch it tomorrow, 6:00. You can watch it right here on YouTube and Facebook, and listen to it on AM 550 and FM 102.9. And the points in this game, the combined points, absolutely incredible. We're either in for a shootout or we're in for, and I'm going to say it, I've said it before, an old-fashioned slobber knocker here. And maybe just an epic game between those two. And then, as you said, Milton, Jackson County. Again, I want to say this, and this is not saying anything negative to Jackson County at all, but Milton at Jackson County sounds weird. It just sounds weird in the playoffs. And that's a testament to Jackson County Coach Mobbs and their players winning that region, getting a 1 seed in the playoffs, winning their first round game, and now here they are playing defending state champ in the second round, who, by the way, is a 3 seed out of that region. This has the makings, as you said, of being a give me the popcorn, as you said, but just a fantastic epic battle over at Panther Stadium in Houston.
Well, and the way that Jackson County has done it too, it's not like they've fluked their way into it. They've been dominant in every single game that they've played. Even that Jefferson game, from what Jeff Hart has told us, that's a 13-3 game, but Jackson County controlled that game and had their opportunities to score and win that game. So it's by no fluke that Jackson County is hosting this game. Like you said, it's just so weird that we're talking about Milton and how good they've been traditionally. They're a 3 seed having to go to Houston.
Yeah.
You would think if we said Jackson County, Milton, given what Jackson County has done this year, you would think it's a quarterfinal game and we're flipping a coin to determine who's hosting it.
You would think so. You absolutely would. And by the way, that game's on AM 550 on Friday, so make sure you tune that in. You can stream it, the audio stream on accesswdwin.com. So we've got full coverage of that game for you coming up on Friday, as well as Gainesville at Brunswick. The crew's going down there. Trent, Caleb, they'll be on the road as they'll bring you that broadcast, Gainesville at Brunswick. And, of course, I've got FM 102.9, but I've got North Hall and LaGrange, round 2 of this game. And LaGrange is a much different-looking team because Malachi Fanning-Bender is not on the team. Last year, 264 rushing yards against North Hall. They ran out to a 35-3 lead over the Trojans in that third-round game of the Brickyard. This year, a little bit different, but they are still good. They still have a speedy quarterback, and it should be an interesting battle. The question is, can North Hall handle the speed if they get going as far as Barber, who is their dual-threat quarterback, but downfield is what scares me for North Hall.
Well, but the crazy thing is that North Hall's offense is getting healthier.
It
You
is.
know,
It is.
Mason McGill likely back this week. I don't think he was back last week,
back.
but he's back now. This is where we anticipated him coming back. Ty Kemp is right on the verge of coming back. We anticipate him being able to play in a quarterfinal next week should North Hall advance. So while everybody else is kind of getting banged up, North Hall is getting healthy. If they can find a way to get past LaGrange on Friday, North Hall has got the pieces to be able to make a run to the bins. It's just a question of can they get past this game, because the draw after this week, not to say you could look past anybody, but it is a manageable draw
It is.
in the 3A bracket.
It is. And when you talk about looking past, obviously North Hall's not doing that. It is a favorable draw for them if they get past LaGrange. You do talk about getting healthy. They are healthy up front on the offensive line now with Mason back into play, Cade Hawthorne on the other side. So that's key because of LaGrange pass rush. They have so many different blitz packages they're going to bring at him. So Alex Schleeman, it's going to be a big game for him. He's not only going to have to win the game or play with his arm, but he's also going to play with his legs or run the football. So they're going to put a lot on him, but you have to be satisfied. You have to be kind of optimistic about the amount of running backs that can get the job done for North Hall. The only question, the biggest question I have is on defense for North Hall. Last week we saw Mount Zion hit some long balls against North Hall. So that will be huge, and I think it starts up front on the defensive line for them, getting some pressure on the quarterback. But regardless, North Hall, as you said, this game's a toss-up, I believe is what the Maxwell ratings are saying at this moment. So I would give that the toss-up. This is a hard one to pick because you have two very good teams. You have one team in North Hall who's averaging 50 points per game, and then you have one team on the other side who's only averaging 33, but they are dangerous.
Well, and you talk about getting pressure on the quarterback for LaGrange. It's not only getting pressure, but keeping him in the pocket.
Mm-hmm.
Where he's dangerous is when he gets out of the pocket and can extend plays with his legs. So the big key for North Hall offensively is containing the quarterback defensively, offensively. There's so, like you said, there's so many running backs and wide receivers that it seems like we're talking about a new name every week that Alex Schleeman has found to hook up with. So if they could keep Schleeman upright, if the offensive line can keep him upright, he has the ability to pick apart this LaGrange defense, and you could be in for a shootout or, like you said, a absolute defensive slugfest, depending on what North Hall's offense is able to do.
Yeah, I think there's going to be some points scored at this game. I don't know how many, but I think there's going to be some points scored. So looking forward to having the call of that one on Friday night. So, fun night, round 2 of the high school football playoffs. And how many will we have left? We've got 6 heading in to the GHSA playoffs, including Lanier Christian, who's playing for the GAPS state championship on Friday against Creekside Christian. So good luck to them. But we've got 6 teams. How many will be left? And of those 6 teams, we have 5 playing at home. So that's pretty interesting.
And Buford wins a coin flip. Jackson County wins a coin flip, I believe. So if we get those 2 teams win for sure, we've at least got 2 teams playing at home next week. North Hall would be the higher seed. Jefferson would be the higher seed. So we could have as many as 4 home games over Thanksgiving, which means for the crews, that are having to come in for Thanksgiving football on a Friday night, not a whole lot of long road trips.
Not a whole lot of long road trips. And, we all know that Georgia Tech game kicks off at 3:30 next Friday. So
don't go to Atlanta.
Don't go to Atlanta. That's right. All right, Walker. Well, that's a good show for today. Don't forget, full coverage coming up on Friday. We'll have the tailgate show. Then we'll have our 3 games. Again, the 3 games, AM 550, Milton at Jackson County, North Hall hosting LaGrange on FM 102.9, and the Gainesville traveling down to Brunswick. We'll have all 3 of those games, and then coming out after the game, the scoreboard show will recap hopefully we'll get all the coaches on. If we get a full scoreboard on Friday night, we'll get all the coaches on and we get a full wrap, Walker. I think you'll be there, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Scoreboard show will be on as soon as Jackson County and Milton goes final on AM 550, and uh, Caleb and I'll have as many games and brackets as we can filled out during the show and tell you what's coming up over Thanksgiving week because the show never stops with high school football until we finish up in the bins in mid-December.
That's
So
right.
Thanksgiving football is always a fun thing to have.
Pick'em show tomorrow night, 6 o'clock. Jackson County head coach Corey Mobbs going to join us. North Hall head coach Sean Pender going to join us. And Sean Conley is going to come and try to be undefeated so he can tie Daniel McQuarrie at the top of the standings. So we're
Yeah,
trying
how
to have a
about you and
playoff.
Daniel going unbeaten? That was well done.
It's the best picking week I've had.
So you just an aside, you have to make sure that when it comes to the pick'ems that you make sure that Caleb knows you were undefeated because the last 2 weeks he's made sure that everybody knows he was the regular season champ. So
Okay.
got to put him in his place a little bit tomorrow night.
I can handle that. I can handle that pretty easy, and I definitely, I will. So, but
I
yes,
can't wait to watch the playback Thursday
yeah.
night. So.
Yes. So join us tomorrow night, 6 o'clock. You can view it right here, YouTube Live, Facebook Live, and then tune us in on radio on AM 550 and FM 102.9. As that's a wrap for the show. For Walker and Bo, I'll see you tomorrow night. Walker will talk to you on Friday, and have a great rest of your week and enjoy round number 2 of high school football.